Hello everyone, welcome to yet another video in this, the clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And today we are talking about yet another geopolitical conflict that for some reason has flared tensions within the UK. Because as the old saying goes, if you import foreign people, you are of course going to import foreign problems. And the conflict we are of course talking about is the Israel-Palestine one, where there has been tensions for decades between the two countries, but over the weekend, it appears that Hamas, the Palestinian terrorists, decided that they were going to go into parts of the south of Israel and kidnap women, kill them, sexually assault them, children too, of course, paradrop into an Israeli peace festival, and to keep this YouTube friendly, I guess we'll say have it a lot less peaceful. And this is all news that you can find online. There's already a Wikipedia page about the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine. So we're not particularly here to cover that because a lot of other places are going to cover that much better. No, we are going to be focusing on the internal conflict in the UK of that, but I will touch upon the international community because it is quite funny. First off, we have President Joe Biden just saying, let me say this as clearly as I can. This is not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks to seek advantage. My administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering, which no doubt gives the American government an excuse to give even more money to Israel, but hey, that's an entirely different issue. As far as this message goes, I don't see anything wrong with it. Next, we had the European President Ursula von der Leyen saying, I spoke to my friend Isaac Herzog and conveyed to him my full support to Israel in the face of today's terrorist attacks by Hamas. I reiterate that Israel has the right to self-defense. The EU mourns the victims of these senseless attacks and stands by Israel today and in the next weeks. Again, absolutely nothing wrong with this message. It's what you'd expect from a president of the EU. But I think the funniest tweet from the international community has to come from the UN, the most useless peace organisation I think I've ever seen. So, the day after the terrorist attacks on Israel by Hamas, involving many sexual assaults and murder of women, the UN Women tweeted this out. Remember, trans lesbians are lesbians too. Let's uplift and honour every expression of love and identity. Happy International Lesbian Day at Free Equal. And having a look through the rest of the UN Women's account, there is absolutely nothing about Hamas's attacks on Israeli women. Probably some of the worst attacks on women I have ever seen in my life. And the UN Women have absolutely nothing to say about it. This ultra-feminist organisation has nothing to say about the, quite frankly, rape and murder of women. And this is quite the theme that's going on through fourth wave feminism. As it turns out, the intersectional religion, they actually put other groups above women. Feminists are putting Palestinian terrorist men who have committed heinous, awful acts against women above the entire group of women. I could honestly not see any reason for that other than the fact that quite a lot of intersectional types turn out to be anti-Semitic. But in the interest of fairness, it is fair to point out that the UN Secretary General did say this: I condemn in the strongest terms this morning's attack by Hamas against Israeli towns. I urge all diplomatic efforts to avoid a wider conflagration. So, at least the UN isn't stupid enough to say nothing about it. Anyway, we're here to get the UK's reaction on the whole thing, and naturally, our Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was on the side of Israel. I'm shocked by this morning's attacks by Hamas terrorists against Israeli citizens. Israel has an absolute right to defend itself. We're in contact with Israeli authorities, and British nationals in Israel should follow travel advice, which I would not be surprised is anything other than get out of there. Once again, nothing wrong with this statement. It's fine to be on Israel's side. It seems to be such a one-sided conflict morally that I don't know how you could ever be on Palestine's side unless you're mental. And that's what we call foreshadowing, by the way. However, it is obvious that siding with Israel can go too far as well. As Penny Mordaunt says, Israel's security is our security. And you just have to question why. As I say, there is nothing wrong. In fact, I think it is morally correct to be on Israel's side in this conflict. But to go as far as saying that if Israel doesn't exist, then Britain can't exist, that's obviously not the case. I mean, for God's sake, the British state literally made Israel. And the idea was for it just to be a Jewish homeland, for them to be independent. Their security has nothing to do with ours. So, obviously this is taking Israeli support a bit too far, but hey, it's not the worst thing we'll read today. Because SOAS, or the School of Oriental and African Studies based in London, naturally has a Palestine Society. And this was a post they put up on Instagram. The Palestinian people have the right to resist occupation by any means necessary. This was posted not too long after a whole bunch of women and children were brutally assaulted, both sexually and violently, with naked corpses being dragged through the streets of Gaza. This isn't just implicit support of these actions, this is explicit support from the Palestine Society in SOAS supporting that action. They need a knock on the door from Prevent, they need the police over to investigate, because supporting terrorists cannot be tolerated, and these are by no means the last group that should be reported to Prevent and the police. But this wasn't the only University Palestine Society to have a normal one. Warwick's Palestine Society decided to put this post up on Facebook. In the early hours of the 7th of October 2023, we witnessed the unfolding of Gaza's resistance against the 75-year-old military colonial occupation. Gazans in particular have suffered from a land and naval blockade that has contaminated 97% of their water sources and turned Gaza into the world's second largest open-air prison. At least 70% of the residents of Gaza themselves are Palestinian refugees, fleeing from displacement and execution at the hands of Israelis since 1948. Gaza and its population of over 2 million residing in the densely populated Strip have been fenced by Israeli walls ever since, and now it has finally been torn. What we see now is not unprecedented or unprovoked, it is the response of the colonised, who have faced decades of massacres and onslaughts. This is a response to the daily destruction of Palestinians' homes in Masafayata, Huara, Nablus, Jenin, and all the towns and villages across the historic land of Palestine. We stand in solidarity with Gaza, the martyrs, and the resistance of this vile occupation. So that's pretty clear from Warwick's Palestine Society. Yes, just so you know, when there are people in universities saying we need to support decolonisation, this is exactly what they mean. They will justify absolutely any action against those that they see as oppressors. In Britain, they happen to see the British as the oppressors. They would be very happy with seeing people like you and me, if you are a supporter of Britain in any way, suffering the same evils that we are seeing from Israel right now at the hands of Hamas. That is what they want. They are being quite open about it, and the final example from UCL I think is one of the worst. So from UCL, our brave and hard-working Palestinian people, those freeing the world, the Palestinian resistance in these historical moments, are engaged in a heroic fight for Al-Aqsa Mosque, our sacred sites and our prisoners. Over the last few days, thousands of fascist and criminal settlers desecrated the shrine of the Prophet and performed their prayers to impose sovereignty over the area. If the world will be silent, we will not be silent about this aggression. That is a quote from Ismail Haniyeh, political chief of Hamas. UCL put up a little graphic of the chief of a prescribed terrorist organisation. If that is not explicit support for a prescribed terrorist organisation, I don't know what is. As far as I'm concerned, absolutely every Palestinian society in all universities needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at by Prevent, because they are all clearly in favour of open terrorism. And if they're in support of terrorism abroad, why would they not be in support of terrorism domestically? What's your reasoning for that? However, it wasn't just University Palestine Societies having a normal one. Dr. Jennifer Cassidy, the Diplomacy and Tech Lecturer at University of Oxford, which just goes to show you how silly Oxford doctors can be, had this to say. This is just my personal recommendation, but I strongly suggest when and if you are tweeting about Palestine and Israel, you need to turn off the ability to reply. For years of research in my work, the power of Israel digital work and bots is unprecedented compared to any country worldwide. No exaggeration. This is based on years of work, as the spread of misinformation and bots will be unprecedented. Yes, it's no longer Russian bots, it's those sneaky Jewish Israeli bots that are spreading disinformation about the checks notes Hamas terrorist insurgency that is killing Israeli women, children, and of course men. There's even ISIS-like videos of beheadings of IDF soldiers, so it's pretty wild to say or imply that any of that is disinformation. Goes without saying, but let's not tweet any misinformation from our accounts. And I will repeat again and again, nothing, and I mean nothing, justifies killing of any innocent civilian from any side, and nothing justifies apartheid. These two beliefs can exist together, sure. But please turn off replies, just my recommendation, as the spread of misinformation and bots will be unprecedented. Anyway, needless to say, she's Irish, so I'm not particularly surprised she's on Palestine's side implicitly here. And if you want something a bit more explicit, this is what she tweeted in reply to the Secretary of State, saying that he has spoken to Palestinian president and says that he and other Palestinians must condemn the attacks. Dr. Jennifer Custody said the United States speaking with President Abbas is not enough. They need to stop supporting and propping up a government that supports and engaged in apartheid. Now, nothing legitimates the killing of innocent people or civilians from any group. Let me make that clear. There is no direct line of diplomacy between Palestine and Israel. The countries that can step up to engage in halting this brewing all-out war is Turkey, Egypt and Qatar. In other words, a bunch of countries that are vehemently anti-Israel. I mean, there were Israelis shot in Egypt over the weekend. I mean, it is good that she thinks that the murder of women and children is bad, but I'm not going to lie, I don't think you'd ever catch me dead on the side of anyone who uses terrorist tactics like that, so well done Dr. Jennifer for being on that side, I suppose. But this is the thing, this is all just to point out that all over universities in the UK, there are people that are either pro a state that is clearly quite open to being fine with terrorism against their enemies, going all the way to actively supporting the terrorism. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're showing support for Palestine openly over this weekend, you should be investigated by Prevent. Because as much as I'm for free speech and all that, if after a horrific terrorist attack like we saw over the weekend, and I've seen videos that I don't think I ever want to see again, and I wouldn't wish for you to see. But if you can support a country that is fine and not condemning those type of actions, you are obviously in support of it too, whether you know it or not. And I know this is going to mean an awful lot of work for Prevent, because as far as I'm concerned, absolutely everyone holding up this banner or cheering for this banner needs to be investigated. This is the Scottish team Celtic, with banners being held up saying victory for the resistance and free Palestine. Now, the free Palestine one, again, you can probably say plausible deniability. Victory for the resistance, though, yeah, that they clearly see this as a battle that they have won. A battle that included so many civilian casualties, assaults, and crimes against humanity, as far as I'm concerned, that I think it's fair to say that you support that type of action and would therefore encourage it and therefore need to be investigated and hopefully put in prison for a very long time. And if you're foreign, then you should be deported as well. So we've had universities and the absolute worst football team in Britain on the side of Palestine, but of course other leftist types were having an absolute normal one. Michael Walker, the very annoying twink from Novara Media, posted this out. So guys, do we support the right of an occupied people to fight an occupier or not? Which, look, absolutely everyone likes an underdog story, Michael, but I think that Star Wars would be a very different film if Luke Skywalker started kidnapping the wives of stormtroopers to do unspeakable things to them and then post it openly on the Empire's version of Twitter. So naturally the idiot deleted it, and when confronted on why he deleted it, he said this. Because I felt that was maybe crass given the nature of some of the attacks on civilians. Some of them. Palestinians have an absolute right to resist occupation, and they have a few options to do it peacefully, but I don't want to be misinterpreted as cheerleading civilians being killed. Well, this half-hearted apology seems to say, if the international community wasn't so absolutely against these terrorist attacks, I'd probably be on their side. This is just how it comes across, Michael. I'm not saying that you do support Palestine doing unspeakable things to women and children, but I am saying the only reason that you would say something like that is due to peer pressure, rather than the fact that you're actually a good person. Now, was that the only thing that someone from Novara Media said? Absolutely not. Well, Ash Sarkar and Aaron Bastani seem to understand the political landscape and know not to fully throw your support behind Hamas, and Michael Walker was just a little bit crass about the whole thing. The worst offender has to be Rivka Brown, who is a small-time contributor to Novara Media, and she said this: "Today should be a day of celebration for supporters of democracy and human rights worldwide." How you can say either of those things about Palestine after they have just violated the human rights of a bunch of Israelis and they've not had elections for 15 years? Yeah, this is just pretty conclusive proof that Navarro Media's staff is just full of people who ride vibe-based waves. Oh, I like Palestine and Palestine's in the news. I need to show support. Oh, they won a battle? Wow, they're winning the war. And then you realise that it's just a terrorist attack. As Gazans break out of their open-air prison and Hamas fighters cross into their colonisers' territory, the struggle for freedom is rarely bloodless and we shouldn't apologise for it. Again, this woman needs to be reported to Prevent and Prevent needs to investigate her. She is clearly pro-terrorist and she will probably be pro-terrorist against people in Britain too. As you can see, there is also a community note pointing out that Hamas are terrorists and that this tweet is in fact madness. However, did she back down on this? No, she in fact just doubled down and said, well, Israel are doing the same thing. To those accusing me of condoning rape and other atrocities, obviously I am not. I am celebrating Palestinian armed resistance. I don't condone every act taken by the resistance, just so wouldn't every act of the Ukrainian military, especially given it has neo-Nazi battalions. Unlike Israel, Palestine lacks a standing army. Still, its militia have made concerted efforts to attempt to avoid targeting children. Meanwhile, Israel snipes Palestinian kids, bombs their homes and cuts their ventilators. Well, the thing is that Hamas have child soldiers and put them at the front lines to then make propaganda saying, look, Israel are killing our kids. Well, you're putting them on the front line, so what do you expect? If we're going to talk about the moral war, let's start there. And obviously there's another community note pointing out that Palestine is not, in fact, trying to avoid targeting children. In fact, they are holding them as hostages. So, again, she's being reported to Prevent by a lot of people. I suggest you report her too, because she needs to see justice for this open support for terrorism. So now that the BBC-adjacent Navarro Media have been shown to have a bunch of terrorist sympathisers within their ranks, I think it's time to take a look at their demagogue. This is what Jeremy Corbyn had to say about the whole affair.
Yesterday I sent out a statement calling for a ceasefire, calling for peace and calling for an end to the occupation of Palestine, which of course is fundamentally the background to the whole issue. Obviously, all attacks are wrong.
Please, let's have a ceasefire. Let's just talk about this. That's not going to happen after the state-supported terrorists crossed the border, kidnapped, raped and murdered women and children, paraded their dead bodies through the streets, dragged corpses through the streets and even live humans to be beat by Palestinians through the streets. It is obviously an idiotic statement to say, how about a little bit of a ceasefire? But really the interviewer gets to the crux of the issue, which is, yes, you're saying all violence are wrong, but
do you condemn Hamas?
I think I've made my point.
Well, no, you haven't quite made the point. Lots of people...
Wait a minute. You love interrupting people when they're trying to answer a question, don't you?
You're not answering the question, though. Do you condemn Hamas? You're not saying yes or no. You're saying, oh, all violence is wrong. Because, quite frankly, this isn't the first time you have supported Palestinian terrorists. Here's him laying the wreath at the graves of Salah Khalifa and Atef Bezezo, who were allegedly behind the Munich massacre of Israeli athletes at the 1972 Summer Olympics. Now, granted, this was alleged. However, it's pretty bad optics when you are literally one of the people laying one of the wreaths on the graves. That is explicit support of these two's actions, and possibly even alleged actions.
Now, to say it for the third time then, yesterday I sent out a statement which made it very clear I wanted peace, I wanted a ceasefire, and I wanted a process which ended the Israeli occupation of Palestine, which is fundamental to it. I don't support any attacks, therefore I criticise them all, and that, I think, is the end of the matter. Thank you.
But he can't condemn the organisation as a whole, even though the organisation has committed vile acts of terrorism. He can't... all attacks are bad. Okay, fine, sure. I know that it includes it. We need to hear you condemn it. They are clearly one of the most evil organisations that we are witnessing in the modern time. But he can't do it, because he is completely blinded by his ideology of decolonialisation, which, as is being pretty open by decolonialists now, that all that really means is pillage and rape of whoever is deemed a colonialist. Now, I know Jeremy Corbyn keeps saying that attacks are bad, but frankly, if you can't condemn the organisations who are behind the attacks, then as far as I'm concerned, you do passively condone them.
So, yes or no, you condemn these attacks, Mr. Corbyn? Mr. Corbyn, it's a yes or no question.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
The student security that Jeremy Corbyn has. I mean, this is the problem with millennials and Zoomers. A lot of them do still support Jeremy Corbyn, and therefore everything he says, and therefore that's why you end up with people at Novara Media who are very flippant about dead Israelis and will play full apologia for the terrorists. As far as I'm concerned, yes, these people should be in jail, because the passivity of this leads to things like this. A kosher restaurant in Golders Green, North London, vandalised, and a bridge meters away branded with Free Palestine. As in previous conflicts involving Israel, British Jews are being targeted amid a rise in anti-Semitic attacks. You have to condemn Palestine in this case. They have obviously done evil, and it does inspire copycat attacks around the world, and of course in Britain, because we're a multicultural society, which for weeks the establishment have been trying to say hasn't failed, after Suella Braverman has claimed it has failed, and then at the same time we're already getting attacks. In fact, multiculturalism has worked so well that the Metropolitan Police had to put out this statement. Increased policing patrols across key areas of London. In light of the ongoing conflict in Israel and the border with Gaza, Londoners will see more police officers on the streets across the capital to reassure and protect communities. DAC Andy Valentine said, "We are aware that this conflict has far-reaching impact on communities around the world, and we extend our full support to those affected in London." Because obviously there will be friends and family of Palestinians and Israelis in London. "We are listening and working with communities and partners to ensure people feel safe and protected. We ask that members of the public report anything concerning such as threatening behaviour. We are aware that a number of demonstrations and protests are planned. We have spoken to the organisers and we expect these will pass off peacefully. However, we will take a zero-tolerance approach to any activity which crosses the line into criminality." In other words, the Metropolitan Police have had to issue a statement to reassure people that an ethnic conflict between Palestine and Israel won't affect British people in London. It won't affect a British city. Because guess what? A lot of these attacks have got to be one way. And it's already started with a few Jewish shops having their windows broken. I don't think I need to imply any more than that. But I will say it ain't British fascists doing it. But the type of behaviour that I hope they are focusing on and cracking down on is obviously violent attacks, but also videos like this. That was a scene of a street corner in London where, after the terrorist attacks happened, there were people with Palestinian flags out, cheering, celebrating, putting on loud music for the unspeakable acts committed against Israelis. All these people need to be arrested, need to be trialled, and if they are foreign-born, need to be deported. We should have absolutely no patience and no tolerance for people like this, especially if they're foreign-born. If they are native types, throw him in jail. I am fed up with the don't look back in anger mentality. Obviously, anger makes you do stupid things, but it is an absolute righteous emotion to have after any sort of terrorist attack. Everything should have been stepped up post the Manchester bombing, post any terrorist attack throughout Britain, to be quite honest with you. Because at the end of the day, if these people are happy for this to happen to Israelis, they are happy for it to happen to anyone they consider their enemies. And that will include you and me. And obviously, London wasn't the only place with these pro-Palestine demonstrations. Here's one from Birmingham. Yep, a rather large march after an Islamic terrorist attack against Israelis in Birmingham, full of foreign people shouting "Free, Free Palestine" and "Allahu Akbar." These people do not see themselves as British, even the second and third generation immigrants. They obviously see themselves as Palestinian, so much to the point that they are implicitly condoning terrorism, because if you're having a celebration march after this attack, you are supporting terrorism. As far as I'm concerned, they should all be deported. And this, of course, wasn't the only city to see something like this. Here's a similar clip from Manchester. Now, this one in Manchester is obviously a little more diverse than Birmingham, but even the British people within these marches, they should definitely be investigated and once again arrested. And I don't see how being part of this march you have any defence against being pro-terrorist. I don't see any defence. There was only one reason that you would be out in the streets marching like this in a celebratory fashion. It's because you think you won a legitimate battle, when in reality you are just supporting crimes against humanity. All of these people will consider themselves feminist as well. And as far as I'm concerned, they need to be put in a chair a la Clockwork Orange and just see all the clips, every single one of the clips that the Hamas terrorists have collated of themselves committing these crimes that they think are righteous. They need to watch that, see them celebrating, see the people spitting on dead corpses of women, and be put in jail cells for 5 years at a minimum. Because I'm fed up of living in a country where it is seen as okay to celebrate this sort of atrocity. I am fed up of a limp-wristed judicial system that can't even deport people because they say they won't get as good medical care in their home countries as they will Britain. I'm fed up of the liberalised visa system post-Brexit that is allowing even more immigrants in per year than we saw under the European Union. And I am fed up with having to pretend in polite society that there aren't huge problems like this. And the fact that there seems to be absolutely no political party that is in any way serious about solving the issue. Because we have a fairly large cohort of people, both native and foreign-born, that are clearly completely fine with terrorism. And if you want even more proof of that, here is a Brighton protest with a speaker literally condoning and saying we should celebrate the attack by Hamas against the Israelis.
For me, yesterday was a victory.
If she has dual citizenship, immediately, just from that sentence, revoke her British citizenship, send her back to Palestine. If she only has British citizenship, put her in jail. Do it, 10 years minimum. She's a clear and present danger to everyone around her. She is perfectly fine and in fact sees terrorism as a victory. We can't tolerate that.
As a Palestinian, yesterday was a victory.
Deport. Deport. She's just admitted she's Palestinian. Deport her. Send her to Palestine then. We cannot tolerate this, and we need a judicial system that is actually going to serve the people of Britain. Allowing foreign terrorist supporters in the country is absolutely not serving the people of Britain. I don't care how much she helps the GDP.
For freedom fighters and residents to break out of a 15-year blockade so successfully under the inhumane genocide from Israel was so beautiful and inspiring to see.
Did you see the videos? Have you seen the beheadings of IDF soldiers? Have you seen the people of Gaza spitting on the corpses of dead Israeli women? Have you seen how happy Hamas are to kidnap kids? If you find that inspiring, you are a clear and present danger in Britain. You need to be sent to Palestine or put in jail for a very long time.
It shows us that it shows us as Palestinians, and it shows the world as us from Palestinians, that we will always fight and we will always resist, and we need to celebrate these acts of resistance because this is a success.
I include everyone clapping in this clip as well. There are people clapping a speech saying, yes, you're right, sister, this is a success. They all need to be referred to prevent. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this is how bad things have got. People are literally allowed to go out in the streets and say, yes, these terrorist attacks, they are a complete success, and I'm inspired by it, and I want to see more. It's just absolute insanity. We are literally mad for having allowed this many terrorist supporters in. And they have apparently managed to inspire native Brits to be on side with terrorist attacks as well. You cannot have a peaceful and successful society that involves multiculturalism. We need everyone to be and act British. We need these people to have integrated. And what seems to have happened instead is it appears to have just caused even more tension. What a surprise. I wonder who predicted that.
Revolutionary violence initiated by Palestinians is not terrorism. It is self-defense.
Rape and murder and parading of corpses of these women and children throughout Palestine, it's self-defense. It's just self-defense. We didn't do nothing. Didn't do nothing whatsoever. This video isn't getting monetized, but I don't care at this point. The message matters a lot more than any sort of income I am going to get from this video, because I'm fed up of it. As I've said, just fed up of having allowed people like this into the country. They can support their terrorism in their native country. They can go fight for Hamas for all I care. But you can't stay here. I don't see a reason to allow you to stay here. We are a very, very incredibly tolerant, and we certainly used to be a very libertine society. You can get away with saying an awful lot here, but we need absolute, consistent and solid lines of what you're allowed and not allowed to say. And this is obviously on the you need to get out of here side of the line.
And it is encouraging the liberation of Palestinian people who have been under illegal occupation for 75 years. Woo! I'm gonna leave you with this. This is not a Muslim issue. This is not an Arab issue. This is not a Palestinian issue. This is a human rights issue.
Yeah, you got that right, and it's absolutely not the Israeli occupation of Palestine that is the human rights issue here. But that crowd, bunch of British people, bunch of native British people clapping along with it. I mean, if you think that this problem is just reserved for foreign communities, you're dead wrong. This problem is widespread throughout a load of native institutions. This is where intersectionality leads you to. It leads you to hating absolutely anyone who is white, absolutely anyone who is straight, absolutely anyone who is male, absolutely anyone who is Jewish or Christian. And as the decolonists have been open about, or the intersectionalists have been open about, the natural conclusion is that they want to kill you. Honestly, it starts with saying, yeah, you shouldn't be friends with racists, which to a lot of people just means gammons who say nothing wrong with Muslims, just don't like them. And unironically ends up with them supporting the death of them. That's where it's going to inevitably end up. And for some reason, Free Palestine seems to be a lightning rod for not just people who support terrorism, but terrorists themselves. Here is a picture of Salam Abedi, the Manchester bomber, who was at a Free Palestine march. This man ended up killing at least 22 women and girls at an Ariana Grande concert and injuring many, many, many more. And the irony of this is that there were probably people at that Ariana Grande concert who were also at that Free Palestine march. But they're so blinded by wanting to seem like a good and moral person in this new paradigm we're in, that they're blinded to the danger that's right in front of them. And this position is so mainstream that Labour MP Absama Begum, seen here surrounded either side by, again, two white British Labour supporters, selling all sorts of tat to support Palestine, who, again, over the weekend, committed war crimes. And the Labour conference is perfectly fine with this, and Keir Starmer even came out and said, no, I'm not going to suspend her for this. Despite the fact that it is quite obvious that Palestine is an entire country and everyone supporting the Palestinian resistance movement is quite happy to see terror attacks committed against Israelis. So as well as Keir Starmer has done trying to get rid of all of the ridiculous far leftists from his party, it appears that he's still not willing to do anywhere near enough to actually get rid of the rot inside the Labour Party. So my advice would be, still, don't ever vote for Labour, even if you think it's going to destroy the Tories. It's not worth it. Vote Reform if you're going to protest vote. But while we're on the subject of the Tories, we may as well cover Suella Braverman's tweets on this, because she is really trying to throw out the red meat for the gammons recently. Whenever Israel is attacked, Islamists and other racists use Israeli defensive measures as a pretext to stir up hatred against British Jews. Yesterday I spoke with the CST UK to ensure the government is doing everything necessary for the protection of our Jewish communities. Seems fine to me. There must be zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or glorification of terrorism on the streets of Britain. I expect the police to use full force of the law against displays of supporters for Hamas, other prescribed terrorist groups, or attempts to intimidate British Jews. Good, I'm absolutely fine with this tweet, and I genuinely hope that they find thousands of Hamas supporters, and I hope that they all get deported. Will that happen? Of course it won't. The whole of the West has one of the most limp-wristed legal systems and judiciary systems throughout history. And the less things are done about these terrorist supporters now, the more terrorism you will see in the future. As we saw, it already started with a kosher shop. That by no means is going to be the last one, and it by no means is going to be the most violent. But this is the state of the country now. There's some sort of conflict abroad, whether it's between Pakistan and India or Israel and Palestine, and boom, you get violence in the streets. It's a pattern, and it's one that only ever seems to be growing and getting worse, because naturally the Israeli government and military have decided to siege Gaza, which as far as I'm concerned is the right thing to do. And if you think that that is going to calm down any sort of tensions within the UK between these foreign communities, then you'd be absolutely wrong. I expect to see riots on the streets at some point over this, though I am of course on the side of I would like to have absolutely no riots whatsoever. Naturally, I condemn all violence. I want to see absolutely none. None of these issues will be solved with violence. If there's one thing you can say about Extinction Rebellion and the climate cultists, they're absolutely right that you are more likely to get things done via non-violent means. Leave it to the states. Things are almost certainly going to get worse in this case, but once the British states just cannot ignore this problem anymore, they're obviously going to have to intervene with a heavy hand. That is simply a prediction. It is not me saying what I want to see, YouTube. Absolutely all my opinions are well within the terms of service. I have said nothing wrong here. Same to you, Prevent, if you end up listening to this. You're wasting your time if you're listening to me. I am fully against all forms of terrorism. I am simply for you and the British government to do its job properly, which is to actually deal with the real terrorist and terrorist sympathisers out there, not me who's just throwing out his very milquetoast opinions on YouTube. Right, with that, that's everything I had for you today. Sorry for the black pill, but I'm afraid it's the world we're in. So, once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.